G'day guys, and welcome to a quick review of Sydney Cup Day. I think it was the 14th of April. Randwick, 3 metre rail. There was some really strong northwesterly winds there that played a bit of havoc with those up front. Yeah, the last winner showed that it might have either died off there or it wasn't impossible to lead and win, but there were some strong tempos to sort of rub it into those leaders who didn't have cover into the back, straight headwind and crosswind. So definitely an advantage to be having a bit of cover, and definitely an advantage to be 2 or 3 off the fence at the least in the straight. Did look like it was a bit of a disadvantage to come up that inside portion. So pretty soft on those runners that came up the inside there. We're being forgiving, and definitely looking to be forgiving to those that were on speed too without cover. First race of the day, the Fernhill Stakes for the 2-year-olds over the mile. Turn that down a bit, sorry. Fast run race here, really fast run race. They ran some really decent time too, so a bit of merit in the race overall. Expect them to run solid time off solid speed, but they definitely did a good job. The start was not a lot happened, I didn't think here. Sort of expected Baldario to head forward. Graceful Glamour always going to look for cover, and these two runners out here, sorry, in Legislation and Ryan Gale were always going to kind of end up in no man's land. It looked and head forward. That was kind of how it panned out. No big excitement here. The weirdest thing I thought about this race was the betting and the money that came for these two runners. That it was always well publicised, and everyone kind of knew about this wind, and it was always going to make the job more difficult of the on paces. It looked like the two that looked like most likely to have no cover were Legislation and Baldario, both jumping in distance. Baldario jumping from 11 to 1600, which is quite a task even for a staying type of horse. So it was and heavily backed, so I couldn't really explain it. The eventual winner's back here for 2. Ends up getting inside runs, but we can see it sort of definitely well back in the field, assisted by the tempo and assisted by the pattern. Stablemate runs second up on the inside here. Third horse was in behind Graceful Glamour. They crossed the line together in third and fourth. Is it Aristocratic Miss? Aristocratic Miss. Not a lot happens in the run. C for 2 struggles to get to the outside. He drops back to the inside. Musselbrook gets the run through the middle. Graceful Glamour and Aristocratic Miss unimpeded down the outside. Vega really one paced, as was the Mandalong horse. Leaders cave in late. Ryan Gale battles away okay. Secudo didn't do too bad a job second up. And overall a pretty straightforward race for 2. Has definitely the best turn of foot in the race, and that was probably what won at the race. Conservative run, conservative ride, saving ground, exploded and put them away. It was a good win. The horse has always shown quite a bit and came off a forgive effort last start. Not a lot to report here. I thought it was all pretty straightforward, nothing to follow, nothing to really sack outside of the ones that were showing up a bit on speed, but they'll be well found. I don't think there'll be any real advantage in being too harsh on them. So a bit of a nothing race to start the day, and even looking back on how the pattern ended up at the end of the day, there's not too much advantage in that race in particular. Race 2 looked at a soft tempo on paper. I'll see quickly that didn't unfold, and that it looked like Renewal and the favourite Isaurian were going to control the tempo. I thought Waimea Bay would probably cross the inside runner and end up third the fence. She misses the start and gets going keen, and eventually kind of spoils the party of the 2 on paces, even though Isaurian was certainly testing Renewal. I thought it was quite interesting that this horse here, Dark Dream, who had already had a 1400 metre run, has 2000 metre form, so you usually expect those horses, they're not scared to work. They kind of gave this horse, I'm not going to say didn't try, they gave it a barrier trial run whereby they kind of didn't put huge importance on this race, I wouldn't believe, and thought it was the right time to educate the horse, drag it back out of the race, and if it ran home and ran well, it ran home and ran well. It obviously, I think if it had gone forward, it would have won. Not to know that Waimea Bay was going to get pulling so hard as it does here and whip around and put extra pressure in. You can see that Bowman had already sort of put the leader to the sword a little bit, and it's only when Waimea Bay pulls incredibly hard and eventually ends up sliding around and really putting pressure on the first two that the gaps open up behind, and we see that pressure really starts to mount. So Dark Dream, you can see already a little bit off the bit here. First horse to be scrubbed along a touch, and eventually you see that he's the strongest horse late. Really good signs for him going up to Brisbane and stretching out in distance. The winner had a nice enough run, gets to the right part of the track, had the nice cover. Progressive horse, probably definitely underrated by me. Thought it was stepping up significantly in class and may struggle to make that big leap, but I also wasn't planning for such a fast tempo, so I still didn't think it would win the race. I thought that if there was a fast tempo that probably Renewal would not be leading, and Dark Dream would end up getting over the top of them. Torval again put in a really honest performance. She's just been a revelation in this preparation. Don't think she's won a race, but she's run extremely well on every occasion. You can see that Waimea Bay was the first horse beaten after pulling itself into the ground, basically. Renewal, a great effort. I think this horse travels like a really strong, sit-off-the-pace 1,000 to 1,200 metre horse. Really looking forward to this horse coming back fresh next preparation, or even if they freshen it up for something towards the back end of the Brisbane Carnival, I'd be interested in backing it there. Not really interested in backing it at 1,400 metres again, unless it really does get the soft lead, but as we can see here, it rarely turns out that way. Good efforts from 1, 2, 3. 4's probably, had a long, tough preparation. Not sure where she ends up now. And Isaurian, I think, was a false favourite here. It was probably more to do with the map. And, a decent enough effort last up. This was definitely tougher. I'm not sure where it goes, but probably one the jury's out on for mine a little bit. I think like Kingdom Come needs to go back in grade a little bit to pick up and win again. And Sparky Lad probably needed that run to bring it on. Waimea Bay, I'm sure what the plans are there, but it was definitely an uncustomary run from her. She's been a real bulldog until this point. So for me, this horse, Renewal, is a fresh horse and needs to go back in distance. Just my opinion. I think Dark Dream's going to find a nice race up in Queensland to win. I think it will win a big race. California Turbo is definitely right on the up, and they're the main three, or main for mine, out of this race at this point in time. I'm not saying that Isaurian had an easy run there and definitely can improve. There's not much of a difference between its effort and Renewals. Definitely can forgive it, and not surprised if it gets away with the race as well up in Brisbane. But I think the others are all pretty smart. I think that's not a bad little 3-year-old listed race. Percy Sykes, Group 2, 1,200 metre fillies, 2-year-old race. Just a solid tempo here. I thought the strangest thing in this race happened at the start. See here, this is Cristobal. This is the winner. Cristobal ends up second last. Watch here, quickly grabs hold of the horse and taken back. Through the field. I thought the other thing that was a bit strange that Outback Barbie didn't choose to improve to the outside here, knowing that these runners were likely to sort of get in his way, and that cover was ideal and you wanted to get to the middle of the track. So I thought that it was a strange effort to want to elect to stay on the fence there behind a couple of runners that you didn't really want to be behind and allow the favourite to dictate you. So for me, the two strange things at the start of the race were Cristobal going well as far back as it did, and Pure Elation, being allowed to take up the run it did. I thought it could have easily been a pair back, and Outback Barbie probably tests the winner from that position. Incredible effort from this horse, Pure Relation, to put the field away as quickly as it does here. You see how she has the high head carriage. Never an easy thing to do as a horse usually, and stretch out and get to your peak. This horse has got a bit of freak about it, and as she continues racing, she seems to learn and get better. She obviously bled, which is a shame 3 months out, but I don't think it'll hurt her in the long run. Hopefully she'll come back, and hopefully it doesn't strike her again and cut her career short. She's definitely got plenty of ability. Fiesta, solid always. Outback Barbie, very unlucky, and Cristobal, pretty solid too, I thought, considering the start had to give away after jumping in front. Gong's very honest type as well, but just lacks a bit of X factor. But backing grade, a touch could win. I'm not sure where they go with Fiesta. I think Outback Barbie will probably show up in the Queensland Carnival, being trained by Tony Golan, and I wouldn't be surprised if Cristobal ends up there too. All 5 across the line, hit the first 5 across the line. All got a bit of ability for mine. The back half, there's some bit of ability there too, but probably not this preparation. Provincial Championships, pretty straightforward. They go very quick, or pretty quick. Serene Miss comes from last and swoops on them. Newsfan held up, runs well for second. Plaisir is a very one-pace type that sort of whacked away. Hell are your boys, similar. Bonamy show that it was a bit of a funny ride as well, choosing to stay wide when it could have tucked in. But still a pretty strong effort. I don't know if this horse really runs out a really super strong 14. Just Dreaming a little bit one-paced, and I thought these two on-paces, Pomelo and Mandalorian, were pretty solid too. So we'll have a quick look at the replay here. The horse that I'm talking about here, I was surprised didn't sort of duck in for a trail, was Bonamy. Here it looks like it definitely has a chance to drop in behind these runners here, and elects to stay 3 wide, ends up with basically 4 wide, no cover the entire trip. The winner ducks back in the field. We watch here, this is the winner. See Bonamy's been wide, no cover the whole way. This is Serene Miss, Just Dreaming. Plaisir dead last, so they've definitely come into it, the back markers. The leader, Mandalorian, who's in its first preparation, has just done an enormous job this prep. Second horse, Pomelo, ridden aggressively, has done a really solid effort to be where it is and run well. So Bonamy, despite sort of setting 4 wide, no cover, is able to put these leaders away, which is an enormous effort. Serene Miss drops on them from back in the field after doing very little in the run. We've seen Newsfan, who was positioned really well early, held up and flashing late, really strong, and Plaisir does what he does, just finishes races off. So we can see that Newsfan's certainly well and truly held up here, while the other runners have got their momentum. Very difficult to pick up and catch those horses, so a very strong effort all around, I think. Pretty straightforward race again. I think Serene Miss can keep winning, and I think Mandelion's a definite horse to look at from the future perspective. I'm not sure where they end up with Pomelo, but if it finds a race where it can settle on speed and preferably with a bit of give in the ground, definitely a horse that can win again this preparation. Again, another one that probably 14 tops it out. Race 5, Arrowfield Sprint. Another ugly race. Viridine was extremely soft in the betting. You see Viridine, another one, like there was no speed in this race. I thought they were a chance of maybe letting him run a little bit because he has been getting a little bit fierce. Except instead they came out with extremely negative tactics, which, was going to be one way or the other. He's got him in behind horses, trying to settle the horse, and we can see that he just reefs and tears basically for the whole run. This is Viridine here. You can see how slow they're going. There's absolutely no gaps between any of the horses. Catchy's come right back behind them and just gone to sleep. This is the slowest tempo of the day. You see Viridine basically pulling Bowman out of the saddle extremely hard at this level to be giving away that sort of start. Catchy just stays out of trouble, as we were saying here. The on paces, thought Showtime's probably, not sharp enough for this sort of trip. Hootson was a little bit weak late. Booker presented like she needed the run. Harassed was long in the market. I'm excited stepping up in grade significantly. Pariah chiming in down the better part, but coming off a luckless run. Not sure how it went. Veridine's pulled itself into the ground, so what I'm basically saying, She Will Reign definitely not at her best. Trying to say that this horse is basically won Lotto to a certain degree. There's not a lot of merit in the race. I'm definitely negative on the winner, as in its winning margin. I think it's been severely flattered. It's the horse out of the meeting. I think that will come out and prove to come up a little bit shorter than it probably should next time off this win. It looks dominant, but definitely a lot was in its favour and went its way in the run, especially the favourite Viridine, who's definitely had no luck whatsoever. And a complete forgive, but he is also doing a lot wrong in his races, so I don't know whether they reset him now and look to set him again in the springtime, or they give him a little freshen and take him up to Brisbane. It'll be interesting to see what they do with him, but he's definitely causing his own problems a bit. He's drawn awkward gates all preparation and not been given the best of rides either, so there's a few excuses for him. See what happens. So for me, from that race, definitely just going to say that Catchy was a little bit flattered by the winning margin there and the overall result. Australian Oaks and two really good fillies here that I'm really got a lot of time for in Unforgiven and High Am. They were completely dominant over the rest of these horses. Unforgotten and High Am set a really strong tempo here. High Am, the time overall is really good, and obviously the pattern against nothing had led and really been in the finish all day, even off slow tempo. So for this horse to get out in front, and you can see she travels pretty well, but just that little maybe 10% keen, which costs her at the end of her races. The winner here is Unforgotten, who's just given a great ride by Bowman, back on the inside, patient ride, doesn't worry about anything here. We've got the second horse winner. The winner's second horse is high rolling. Bowman just switches off heels at the ideal time, gets to the best part of the track, circles the tiring runners without being held up at any stage, and gets out after this horse. The third horse back here is not a bad effort, Miss Admiration, but an extremely one-pace type that definitely looks suited at this trip or further, but I think she'll struggle at this level back in distance, whereas these two are just all class. Look at the way this second horse I Am tries, and the winner gets out after it and puts it away quite comfortably in the end. You can see this horse is definitely not stopping. The second horse, she's got a huge heart, and if she goes to Brisbane and you get a sympathetic on-pace track, she's going to be a nightmare to catch. I don't think Unforgiven's following up there. I think it'll probably be put away, and there'll be other runners from the Waller stables like Savakul and a few others that'll worry this horse up in Queensland, most likely High Am, but certainly the horse to beat in the major in the Oaks if she gets there in one piece. Not too many notables. I thought that Aloysia was set a monster task back in the field, and at least a forgive effort. Maybe not going as well as she was in the spring, but certainly still plenty of life left in her. Bring Me the Roses wasn't bad late, had a few things in its favour. I think that the top two are just really the only two to report on here at this stage. Queen Elizabeth Stakes, Winks, enormous effort. Time-wise, they ran fast time. They run slow tempo, really, because they actually quicken off an even tempo, not only just a slightly slow tempo. Winks is eased out of it. Galo Chop rolls forward, Odeon outside it. Success Day, classic uniform. Nothing really happens here until the Japanese horse gets a bit keen and Williams lets it slide. Ambitious, which puts... Ambitious went before the grey. This is all Winks really needs, is the ability to be able to get a little bit of a toe into the race, and that's when she's usually at her most dominant. She obviously still wins when she gets no cut. I was a little bit surprised by Happy Clapper not taking the run to the outside here. It looked like it was going to get the path that Wink's got. I don't think there's much of an advantage in trying to out sprint Winks. If you've got the chance to pinch a break on her, it seems to be the only possible way to beat her. But obviously ridden for luck here, Happy Clapper, and didn't get it. Cost it second position. Humidor gets the back of Winks and whacks away. Galo Chop's just a really classy 2,000 metre horse, tries its heart out, and here's the gears that these other horses just don't have. So she hits overdrive and races away. Happy Clapper in the worst part of the track makes up some good ground late, strongest on the line behind Winks, and very unlucky not to run second. Coming through, ran a really honest race, as did Humidor. Coming through, especially at weight for age, coming off a handicap effort last week where it fought the finish out nice and strongly to finish second in a Doncaster. So he's in really good form, but she's just different gravy. Tough to explain how dominant she is over, arguably our best 2,000 metre horses in the land. She's a freak, and not a lot to be learned out of that race, so it's hard to see where those horses will go that we can really take much of an advantage of them. If any of these horses go to Brisbane, they'll be definitely competitive in whatever they head to. This is as high a quality race as we can really put together. Sydney Cup, just talk about it quickly. The tempo's pretty solid. I just got a real poor feeling about this race. It just doesn't seem to me like the form's really going to stack up for anything in general. The two favourites are Loft and Our Mandan ran below their best. I thought Lord Fandango was only fair. Sir Charles Road's the only one in the market that really ran well. 100 to 1 third, second, 150 to 1 fifth. I'm not really big on Orvray as a classy type. Obviously, it's a classy type, but at the highest level we're talking here. Who Shot the Barman's a 9-year-old who's a real war horse that's run great races in the best races we've got, but very concerned about the overall form. I just don't like the look of it. I'm going to stay pretty neutral on it because it's hard to pick holes in anything really over 2 miles, and especially at the end here, these horses are quite dominant over the rest of the field. So we've got Sir Charles Road hitting the front, Zakada, Who Shot the Barman. Lasketti Spirit's done a huge performance after being wide. Alvarez cutting up behind them, had every possible chance. Patrick Guerin whacking away down the outside with Our Mandan. I just can't really get a handle on any of this form. Dukan flying home late. Not a race I really want to dissect too heavily because I don't think there's a lot of reason to. Happy to see Who Shot the Bomb and take away a major race, but $1.2 million for Who Shot the Marlin, that's just incredible. Well done to Connections. Queen of the Turf looked the hardest race I'd seen in a while. Certainly looked a bit easier on reflection. That you should have found the winner. There were a lot of distance queries. It was just hard to work out what a 3-year-old filly would do with this setup. It's more of the setup of an older type when we're talking 2,000 back to the mile. 2,000 back to the mile at Randwick's one of my favourite little tricks, especially when we're talking Doncaster's high pressure races. This is a similar thing. We've got a 16-horse, 17-horse field of mares with some fast mares involved over the mile. They actually didn't go as quick as I probably expected. I thought there'd be a little bit more pressure. But, any pressure over a mile at Randwick's enough to bring horses that are queries at the distance unstuck. So, really good efforts here from a few runners on pace. Prompt response enormous. Elise's obviously jagged out the back here, allowed just to settle, back third last. I thought Heavens Above was tracking through like the winner here at one stage, but she just gets windburn late. This is Elise, Heavens Above. Prompt response up there on the speed, so a really, really strong effort from Prompt Response. Some solid efforts from mares behind that just never run bad races, like Silence Edition. I didn't mind the run of Natoya, who comes from back in the field here. I thought she might go to Brisbane and be dangerous in something, but Elise is just highly dominant. Like, look at that way she builds through her gears and really accelerates, takes care of them and runs away from them. Heavens Above's a pretty strong finisher, and she's given her a start and a beating and run away from her. As I said, there's Natoya gets the line quite nicely. Prompt response, a huge effort, be able to be the closest up on speed and create a break and then be run down. Her effort's great. She just keeps running well. No knock on horses like Abby Marie. Dixie Blossom was the one I kind of wanted to point out earlier. I was really surprised to see this horse given a dig and pushed up into an on-pace position. Obviously never found cover and was wide, then sort of drifted a little bit back, but still wide, no cover throughout. Her effort was great to be right here and right there until that's the 200 metre mark, I believe, is it the 300? So she's right there to the 200 even, and battles away quite strongly. She's definitely not one of the weaker efforts on the line, so she's still racing well, but all honours with the winner. Again, I couldn't find much that I wanted to follow. Natoya's a tough one to say it's a horse to follow, but if it strikes a wet track up in Brisbane, I could definitely see it being a knockout runner in a really strong race. Lucky last, Sapphire Stakes. Callista just burns turf here, leads all the way, runs fast tempo. Time's not overly great, but she just put a lot of runners that probably had fitness queries against them to the saw, dragged the sprint out of the back markers who just got way too far back, had to put in too much effort to try and catch up, as the field just never really came back towards that sort of turning point where to let them to build into the race and finish off. They forgiving efforts to horses all the way back here. Sugar Bella, Faraway Town, Sprite especially. Shazzy Lee I thought went okay first up. A return to form for Slow Burn. She's found the line much better this time. No knock at all on Gassoni, Louboutin, who were early in their preparations, as was Invincible. White Moss, Ravi both chased the speed very well, especially White Moss first up and outside, no cover position. And Quillista, as we've said, just in rare form. It's just incredible the way she's come out in a day where it was difficult to lead and set up quite a strong lead and tempo. You expect her just to come back to him here, and incredible that the horses closest to her in the run basically held that position second and third, and then all the back markers. I think Sprite copped a check on the turn. Faraway Town closes okay, Sugar Bella okay, but you can see how wide and far back she was, just an impossible task. Slowburn closing off okay on the fence. Invincible, Gassoni. I think this will be an okay race. I don't know where these horses will end up, but I'm assuming a few of them will be heading to a race like the Tats Tiara maybe, if they get that far. The lead-up races along the way, the Mares Series. It'll be interesting to see where a few of them end up. Callista's just airborne. I'm sure it'll end up in Brisbane the way it's going at the moment. No reason to stop its preparation, and some of those fast, tight tracks will really suit this horse. So, no knock at all on Callista. No knock at all on Ravi, White Moss. No knock on any runner really. I thought the back markers just missed the boat. They're a victim of their own racing pattern, obviously, but don't want to be too negative on them here. And Shazzy Lee's another interesting horse that, if it gets a sympathetic back markers track, could run a nice race in a black type race for mares over the carnival. Hopefully some decent runners identified there. I'll type up a bit of a review as well, and hopefully we have a bit of luck out of the meeting. Thanks, guys.